think for me, Joshua's career pretty much hinges on, and his standing within the fans hinges upon him fighting a live contender in the similar vein as to what Daniel Dubois has done. Not giving away who I think he should fight there, but Deontay Wilder doesn't stand to be someone who's a contender on the rise, burning up to be one of the fighters of the next generation to take over from the likes of Usyk and Fury and AJ. I think AJ, for him to really say like he's still here, can still hang around in this generation and at the top end of the heavyweight division, I think he has to come through one of those, but he still needs a little bit of management from that sort of end because these young guys seem to be very hungry. On an ideal path for AJ, you might figure that he would fight someone like Fabio Wardley, but they're in the same gym, and I think that crosses out that possibility that will happen. So I look at someone like, as you said there, Jarrell Miller, still got life in him, still can sell a fight, won't be opposition who would really damage AJ in the ring. You'd think AJ would be in as a heavy favorite there, but he'd still test him like he did test Daniel Dubois. There'll be some moments AJ has to come through to show what desire and ambition he's got. Philip Hrgovic is someone I think as well too, who's been out of the ring for quite a while. Not heard a peep from Philip Hrgovic since his loss to Daniel Dubois, but Daniel Dubois had to get through him to get to his world title opportunities and to get to Joshua. I think that makes sense for someone who, look, he's only had that one loss on his record. Aside from a lot of people think that I do think he did lose to Zhilei Zhang. I was there ringside for that one. But outside of that one official loss on his record, can take a shot and can give it back as well. So he's pretty much at that fringe type of world level, and Joshua gets a win over him. And I think people will consider Joshua to be back and ready for another big opportunity down the line. Otherwise, maybe, and I know we do, you mentioned there as well about the possibility of going back in with Dylan White. We all love a little bit of nostalgia, so let's get into some nostalgia. Dylan White stands as a possibility if we can get licensed to return with Andy Ruiz, the trilogy against Andy Ruiz. Where is Andy Ruiz right now? I'm not too sure. But if Andy Ruiz wants a big fight, one that he can get up for, one where he feels like he let an opportunity slip by, that's something that I think would sell quite well. Another one being, we all keep hearing about the rumors and whispers, and I think the more than just rumors and whispers of a return to the ring for Vladimir Klitschko. I think that was the lift-off for Anthony Joshua. If that was the lift-off, then it was he's had quite a few crashes down, and none more so resounding, none more so recent than the one against Daniel Dubois. So maybe the relaunch of Anthony Joshua, the third time this time around, is needed, and it can go against a former foe that lifted him off in the first place against Vladimir Klitschko. And then, of course, we've discussed here before in previous weeks the possibility that we finally get the form of Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder in the ring. I think it would be entertaining. I don't think it would be. Wouldn't write it off like how Dan Raphael did, especially in the UK here. I think Wilder doesn't hold as much currency as AJ does have over here, as Wilder does have in America. But that's something that when it comes to Fight Week, I'll be very much interested in tuning into. So I think those are the options there for me. I think Hrgovic stands up as a real top of the list, as does someone like a Wilder or a Klitschko too.
Andy Ruiz right now. I had to stop myself from shouting Taco Bell or something similar because A, fat shaming's not cool, and B, I have to remind myself I'm not the slimmest guy myself these days. So yeah, Andy Ruiz, I don't know where he is, but I hope he hasn't left boxing for good because he is always in entertaining fights. Chris Essex says Turkey is making the Wilder fight for May, he said on TalkSport. DB Cooper 1 says, what's next for AJ? My parents' garden could do with a new wall. Put those bricklaying skills to use, AJ lad. Yeah, I'm not sure you'll be able to match purse offers with some of the other options Joshua's got coming up. Rod Brown says, got more respect for Joshua in the fights where he was KO'd. He kept getting up. VKMMFU LSB, he's really got to change his handle. Says, hi, is Danny flexing on this stream where it's either me or I've been cloned? So, yeah. MB says, Wilder is shot to pieces. Nobody wants to see this fight. Yeah, I mean, I guess they'll go with whatever is likely to generate the most interest and financial recuperation. But is it recuperation? Recompense? Whatever I'm trying to say, I think you've got the idea. I don't particularly want to see the Wilder fight. I think that Wilder's 2 performances, because they went a number of rounds and because it was in back-to-back fights, you can measure his decline pretty clearly. Whereas with AJ, yeah, he got dominated for a few rounds against Dubois, then wiped out. But he didn't look like a shot fighter. He looked like he got his tactics all wrong. He looked like he made a terrible mistake in the moments before the knockout blow landed. But you can look at his fights previous to that, and while albeit the opposition was nowhere near as good as Dubois, you can still say, well, he's got those fundamental skills. He doesn't look like he's lost a step. He's still quick, still powerful. We're not sure we can say any of this about Wilder. He hasn't troubled either of his last 2 opponents with the power. He hasn't even got in position to land those big haymakers. So that is a bit of a concern. And so I think it could end up being a mismatch. And AJ probably does need a confidence builder, but you need someone coming in my view, with a bit more credibility than this current version of Wilder. DB Coupon says, get AJ a fight in Africa. I want to see Danny flex and get malaria. I don't cover shows, DB Coupon. What are you on about? You must be crazy. You must have malaria. He says, for the lols, boxing's very own Cheryl Cole. Brilliant. I'll go by Tweedy or just Cheryl, just Danny. Beautiful Golden Dragon says, Andy Ruiz's barber is in Lewisham. Shout out Nigel, the style surgeon. Okay, good to know. Rod Brown says, why at his age after defeat by Dubois are you trying to find soft fights for him? This has dogged his legacy all his career. I just think from his point of view, having taken that brutal beatdown against Dubois, him and his team will not want to bring him back in a really tough fight. But yeah, I mean, if I'm wrong on that, then fair play to them. VKWM LSB says, Joshua has been carefully managed throughout his career. Povetkin was old and never a world champion, just had been dropped by pride. I mean, he was WBA champion. Albeit when there was a super title in existence. Parker didn't throw a punch. Klitschko, yeah, but that's not AJ's fault, in fairness. Klitschko retiring, gassing, coming off a loss. Yeah, I mean, I don't think AJ's win over Klitschko should be held in high regard. I think it actually underlines some of the flaws that have always been in Joshua's makeup, but that's maybe a story for another day. Cuss's System says, Hearn said it's all about legacy now for AJ, has probably 2 fights left. So in my opinion, has to go for a 3rd world title. Winner of Dubois versus Parker. If he wins, final fight, Bakole in Africa. I think Bakole is more likely to be entertained as his final fight if he loses against the winner of Dubois Parker, but let's wait and see. Brian Petrov says, Eddie Hearn did a brilliant job of keeping AJ away from Wilder's right hand until Wilder is shot. Aged him out, as they say. DB Coupon says, I've always wanted to see AJ versus Miller, right or wrong, the fight we never got. Yeah, so that's the one I suggested earlier. Big Baby Miller, we all saw them going at it verbally and a bit of a push and shove, bit of a push and pull, as Carl Froch would say, and he loves AJ, we know that. At the press conference before the fight, before Miller flunked his latest drug test, although he's been clean since, as far as we're aware, he's in 24/7 VADA testing, I believe, and hasn't fallen foul of that, and still looks a half-decent fighter. He gave Dubois a pretty good test before Dubois came through, and then for a lot of people, they felt he was hard done by against Ruiz in that draw. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to see that, not just because it's the fight we never got, but because that's the narrative. And he's still a decent test for AJ, who's coming back, trying to put his confidence back together. You want someone where AJ will be a bit of a spicy build-up and he'll be angry and he'll be aggressive. That's what we want to see. So I think Miller's a really good shout. Now, whether he'd be allowed to box in the UK under the British Boxing Board of Control, I'm not sure because of his checkered history. But we'll have to see if they agree to fight. I'm sure they'll sound out the board first of all. Where are we? Zumbanu Love has joined us. Good to see you, sir. Says AJ's best wins are Old Vlad, Parker, and Povetkin, which is very similar to what who was it? VKENN Few LSB said. Furies are less old, Vlad, Wilder, and Chisora. Yeah, I mean Fury, Dillian White at the time he fought Dillian White, I think it's an underrated win as well. Zumbanu Love, both were champs for a while. Is that resume good enough? I'm not sure. The Bringer, I think this is, says Bakole would whoop them all. We shall. Hopefully he'll get his chance to prove it. It's FA Jagba next for Bakole. On the Bakole fight, I think it's too risky a fight for too little reward at this stage of Joshua's career. The next fight's incredibly important. If he's, the nature of the defeat against Dubois was incredibly dominant for Dubois. AJ needs to win and win well in his next fight to give him a chance at that top level again, not just in terms of, commercially getting the shot, because he'll always get a shot. He's AJ. But in terms of rebuilding his confidence, where people are actually giving him a chance to win and get that 3rd world title. So I don't think it's going to be Bakole next time out. And if I was his team, I wouldn't be looking at him. As I said, I'd be looking at either Miller or Dillian Whyte, because again, inbuilt narrative, they fought twice, win a piece, one as an amateur, obviously in Whyte's case, and AJ stopped him in what was an entertaining fight earlier in their careers. Whyte didn't look amazing in his comeback fight against Ebenezer Tete, and that's probably an understatement on my part. But he would surely get up for, both in the gym and on the night, a Joshua fight, a Joshua trilogy, if you like, more than he did Ebenezer Tete in Gibraltar, of all places, although I know Whyte's got a bit of a soft spot for Gibraltar. They created a coin in his honour, after all. But yeah, I'd like to see Joshua against Whyte again. Loser must retire type of fight. It's a fight that AJ could go into with confidence, I think, but he'll still get up for it. He won't want to lose bragging rights to one of his historically biggest rivals. They can get on, and then if AJ comes through that and looks impressive doing it, gets the stoppage, then he can go on to that third world title shot.